Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-hand mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we have here a John Deere S100 series. This is an S140, and today I'm going to show you, in my opinion, how to change the engine oil and oil filter, and then a couple just tips on things that I see on this machine that you may want to know with your machine. First thing you want to do, you can warm up the engine if you want to, or as I do on most services, I'll just drain it as I go. So I'm going to go ahead and take the hood off. Just going to go ahead and you don't necessarily have to take the hood off. I'm just doing this to make it a little bit easier. Just going to pull the clips, pull that out, slide this towards me. This will tilt it back. It comes out. We have the engine oil drain right here, which is behind this cover. And on the other side, they have the oil filter. So what we're going to do right now, drain the oil out of the oil drain, and I'm going to jack up the machine. We have two items here. One's a jack 6x6 block of wood. I'm going to go ahead and set the parking brake. Just put the brake in, put the brake on. That'll help us a little bit from it rolling around. Let me go ahead and put your jack underneath the transmission, and we want to get the left side up high enough to get my 6x6 block in there. Drop that down there, around to the front. Back up the front at the pivot point here where the mower deck actually connects, and that's a strong point. Now you probably won't be able to tell how much of an angle this is, but it's a perfect angle for draining oil and trying not to make a mess all over the frame rail. So we want to get this cover off, and there is a bolt right here, and that takes an 8mm socket to take it off. Now when you go to put these back in again, you have two little tabs. You had a tab here and a tab here, and they actually will slide. One slides in here, and then one slides in here, so just remember that. Now, this is a very nice, easy drain right here, and they work perfectly fine. A lot of you guys out there say, oh, these things wear out. These things don't wear out. I've seen these things working for 20 years on tractors, and the only thing you have to replace occasionally is the O-ring inside there. As long as you have these twisted on fine, and you're not abusing it with a pair of pliers or something, these things will last forever, these little push-ons, and they work great. Every now and then you should probably check just to make sure this is tight on the engine block, and if you see a lot of oil sitting around here, then you want to make sure that you tighten this up. Let me go ahead and pull this off. I have a container that used to have antifreeze in it, and that's my oil drain hand. Just go ahead and twist this to the right, pull it off, nice and easy. Let that flow. Now, I did not release the oil cap for a reason on the oil dipstick tube, and that's because I wanted this to come out slowly for now. If you guys are changing your oil and running your engine till it's warm and then changing your oil, this can actually be, it'll come out extremely fast and also can burn you, so you got to be careful. I'm doing this because I'm going to service the rest of the machine, and it's just easy to change the oil and leave it sit there and run out while I'm servicing the rest of the machine. I'm going to go ahead and loosen the dipstick up, pull that out a little bit. That'll just give a little bit of air inside. It'll help it come out. If you're doing this while it's hot, just be very careful. At this point, I want to just tell you a few things about these S100 series machines. They did have issues with these wheels having bad bearings, and the wheels will really start to wobble back and forth a lot. I have a good video on how to put bearings back in these rims. They used to be bearings back in the 1980s, and then they went back to bushings, and the bushings now are failing prematurely. Even if you grease them in these wheels, the bushings are failing. So I have a really good video. I'll put in the link in the description below. The way you can check to see if your John Deere has bushings is to turn your steering wheel one way or the other so you can see the inside. You're going to look in here for a grease fitting. Okay, and this one has a grease fitting right here. If your rim has a grease fitting, most likely you are running with bushings. And if you're running with the bushings, the problem that I think that has happened is these spindles actually they must have been using some cheap metal, because the bushings themselves are wearing and the spindles are wearing, and that's when you get the real bad wobble in these wheels. So now what they're doing is they're actually putting bearings in the newer S1 series tractors. Check to make sure you are running with wheel bearings. And a lot of you guys have said in the comments that the bearings look very thin and they're not going to take the load of the machine. Well, that's incorrect, because back in the 85 to 90s, when they had the old STX series John Deere, they actually had wheel bearings back in the day, and they lasted. And they're still using that same bearing in these rims today. So that's not the problem. There is no problem with that. Put the bearings in here. You know, if you need to, if your spindles are already worn out, you might have to replace these spindles. I have a video on that. I'll also put that in the link in the description below. Just disregard putting the bushings back in and put the new bearings in. I'm gonna go ahead and leave this drain some more. I'm gonna go to the next thing I was gonna tell you about, is that in the new S100 series tractors, I'm pretty sure they are not putting pre-filters on all of these. And I'm not sure why, because if you keep the pre-filter clean, the air filter will last forever and the engine will be much happier and cleaner. There is no pre-filter on here. Let's go to the bench. Okay, so here's the pre-filter. I use aftermarket. You can use the original pre-filter from Briggs. Either, as long as you're keeping a new pre-filter on once a year and just replacing it. I mean, they're cheap enough just to go ahead and replace it. And I have found that I used to use engine oil, very thin engine oil, and if you keep this with a little bit of oil on it, it will keep the dirt from hitting your air filter. But I have found that this is the foam spray that they use on motorcycles, and this is really good stuff, and it's very tacky. And so it will not seep through like engine oil. If engine oil seeps through this and goes into your air filter, it will ruin the air filter. If you use this stuff here, it comes out pretty liquidy. If you're questioning what air filter you have, yours should come with the Briggs, and they show the Briggs number right here. This is the air filter number right there. It's a 590825. Once you get that on there, put this back in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and see how we're doing with the oil drain. We're down to a drip. We're going to go ahead and put the cap back on, push it in, make sure you turn it counterclockwise to lock it in. We're going to go ahead and put our cover back in. Into the slots it goes, like that. And then you have to line up the hole in the frame. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the machine down. Take the drain out. Going to go ahead and jack it back up again, and we're just going to switch tires for the block. The reason why I put it up on the blocks is to keep it from dripping oil all over the frame. If you have an angle on the tractor, it won't drip oil into the frame. I have the front end jacked up, it's angled again. We're going to go around the air side. We have to take off this guard right here. Sometimes these bolts will fall out. They usually have a clip on the back of them, and actually you can see that somebody put a washer in here. Just try not to tighten these too terribly tight, because you can crack the plastic. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so here's the oil filter. If you have the big green single stage oil filter, do it yourself. I highly recommend taking that off. It's not getting all the oil out. I have a good video on how to replace the quick change oil filter. If you want your engine to last, if you want this tractor to be around a long time, definitely have to get rid of that. It does not change the oil when you change out that, and it also costs a ton of money. Once you get the kit in here, it'll take you 1 year and you're already paid for itself. Okay, so now we have to get the oil filter off, and I made, this is out of an oil container, and to help keep everything off the frame. I'm using an oil filter wrench to take it off. It's spring loaded. Just put it over the oil filter. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. And this grabs when you're turning it counterclockwise. Probably gonna need to wear some gloves when you do this because it's gonna get messy. Just let that drain for a little bit. Just gonna go ahead and let that drain. You just have to be careful that they don't fall off and slide off the frame. That looks pretty good right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and we'll get the oil filter ready. This is another oil filter wrench you can use too, a couple different ones. So the oil filter part number is a Briggs. You can use the John Deere, but you're probably gonna pay more money for it. And you can also use an aftermarket as long as you get quality aftermarket. Briggs and Stratton part number is a 492932S. And I do use full synthetic now, 10W30. I put the 10, I go from here and put them in quart containers. And then I'm gonna go ahead and fill up the oil filter about halfway, and that'll prime it. Just gonna put a little bit of oil around the edge of the gasket. Roll this around a little bit to get it sucked up in there. I usually let this drain as long as I can before I take this pan out because it's gonna drip on your frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this out right now. Set this down on the ground. We're going to have a little bit of drainage here. I have seen on occasions that the gasket on the oil filter will stick to the engine. Doesn't happen very often, but if it does, make sure you don't have a black O-ring or a black gasket on there, because that means that your gasket came off your oil filter. And if you put the new one on, you will have a high pressure spray of oil everywhere because you have two gaskets. Go ahead and screw that on. And I put mine on hand tight, and I just make sure that it's really, really tight. Okay. Now I go ahead and use a little degreaser on the oil filter because obviously my hands were oily when I put it on here, because I'm going to use a silver magic marker or a paint magic marker or whatever you want to use. We're going to go up to the hour meter and see how many hours are on this. We're showing 199.7. I want to go ahead and put 199.7. And if you want, just put a little hours. Okay, so we're all set there. We're going to go ahead and put the cover back in, put the notches, line up the notches, then line up your bolt to the frame. Snug it up. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and let the front down. At this point, I'm just going to pull a dipstick out, clean it off. This is a twin cylinder, 22 horsepower Briggs and Stratton Intech engine. It's a proven motor. It's been around a long time. It's a good engine, as long as you take care of it and change the oil. These are going to take normally around 2 quarts of oil. I always put in 1.5 quarts and I start checking it. And we did put a little bit in the oil filter. Second quart going in. Okay, so that's about a little over 1.5 quarts. I would definitely let that set up in there. Sometimes if you check the oil too soon, the dipstick tube will give you a false reading. So we'll come back to that in about 5 minutes. It's been a few minutes here. We're gonna go ahead and check it. Okay, so that is not even touching the, it's not even showing on the bottom dot yet. So we're gonna go ahead and put the rest of the other quart in. Now I don't measure these quarts when I'm taking it from my 5-quart container into these quart jugs, so this may not be 100%. I'll look up to see exactly what this motor takes for this engine and put it on the screen, but it's going to be roughly 2 quarts, maybe a little bit more, depending on the engine model. Don't put any more than 2 quarts in though, and then make sure you double check everything. When you get it to in between the dots, then you have to run the engine for about a minute and then turn it off, let it sit for a couple minutes, and you have to recheck your oil. It's going to go down because the oil filter is going to actually suck up some more oil. Okay, so that put it up on the second dot. That's before we start it up. Now we're going to go ahead and start it up. Okay, so we just got done running it and let it sit for a while to set up. Go ahead and check it one more time. Okay, so this is showing on the bottom dot, and that's because the oil filter soaked that up. So we're going to go ahead and put a little bit more in. And then we'll come back and check that. Make sure you are on level ground when you're checking your oil. You don't want to have this tilting one way or the other, because you can actually overfill it or you can underfill it depending on which way it's sitting. So make sure you're level. Also, when you're checking your oil, just a little note on this dipstick. I'm not sure why they made dipsticks like this, but they have 2 little nubs on this side and 1 little nub on this side, and you have on the dipstick itself the same 2 nubs and then 1 nub. If you put it in backwards, sometimes it won't lock in, and you'll blow oil all over your engine not knowing that this wasn't locked in. So make sure when you're checking it also that it is correctly locked in. Okay, so now it's showing up to the second dot. I like to have it between the dots, but I like it on the upper side of that, so we're good. Do not overfill it. It's also not good for it. Let's go ahead and put the hood back on. I'm going to go ahead and put the hood on, put the first pivot in the hole first over here, slide it in. Should slide over and then down. Just check to make sure it shuts properly before you plug the headlights in. Then we're just going to go ahead and plug the headlights in. Make sure that this is sitting away from your muffler. If you have it sitting inside there, if this is missing, this can actually go inside and melt, so you got to be careful. They do put a nice little clip on the outside of the frame. John Deere sells these clips. You can get them probably at your automotive store, or even a couple zip ties that go through the frame rail, just to make sure this is not going to lean in. Tuck it away, close the hood. That's pretty much it. I would definitely drive it around, double check the oil level to make sure it's where it should be. I want to go ahead and show you the tools that we need today. Okay, so the tools that we use today, I use the 10W30 full synthetic Mobile 1, and I put them in different containers just so it's easier for me to pour into the engine. Pair of pliers. I use a 3/8 ratchet to use on the oil filter remover. If I find one of these, I'll put it in the link in the description below. Also, there's a different oil filter remover, 1/4 inch short extension, 8mm socket, 3/8 extension, silver marker, or any kind of marker that's permanent that you can use on your oil filter to help you put the hours on there and the date. I use a 1/4 inch ratchet. Definitely gonna need some rags. And I really like using the motorcycle spray, foam spray. This stuff's very tacky. It doesn't soak through the pre-filter, which is right here. Pre-filter number, Briggs 797704, and then the oil filter that we used today was a 492932S. Then we have the jack and then a 6x6 block. Sometimes you can just lift the machine on its side a little bit to put the block under if you don't have a jack. So that pretty much wraps it up for how to change the engine oil and oil filter in a John Deere S100 series. This is the S140 with the twin-cylinder Briggs and Stratton Intech engine, and a couple pointers and tips that might have helped you guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.